This book was so much better than I expected. Hey guys, I'm Andrea. I'm a young adult author, and welcome to my channel if it's your first time here, and welcome back if you've been here before. If you've been here before, you know we've been discussing the Serena Legacy series, and I finished the last book of Neptune. Here it is, guys. Here it is. I'm thinking we'll do this review a little differently because my reviews tend to be very long when I go through my tabs. I mean, I still do want to go through my tabs, but as you guys can see, the array of colors here. Yes, I'm still using sticky notes because I'm not going to pay that much money for tabs. It's going to be a long one if I go through my tabs. So what I'm going to do is first give you guys the non-spoilery section of this book and my rating for it. Get ready. So this book follows our main character Emma and her boyfriend Galen as they decide, or Galen decides, that he needs to get away from the ocean because a lady he's very close to, Rachel, has died and he feels as though it is his fault. So he wants to get away somewhere, which is understandable. So Emma finds out through her grandfather, King Antinous, who is of Poseidon, that there is a small town called Neptune, and he sends them there. And little do they know, this small town is full of half-breeds like Emma, which are abominations in their kingdom, and full-bred Serena, who are also descendants of Poseidon, and nobody knew they existed because they thought that when King Triton flooded Atlantis and everything, all the half-breeds were killed, but that wasn't true. So now they're in a position where they're trying to kind of reunite two kingdoms. The half-breeds and full-bred Serena, and then the ocean-dwelling Serena, which isn't a spoiler because it's definitely in the little sleeve here. So I felt that this book, the pacing was on point. Like the last two books in this series, if you've watched, you know, the pacing was just kind of slower, and it was just like, come on, like, when's the good part? This book had amazing pacing. Like, it was just boom, 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 boom. And I was just like, oh my gosh, no. I literally think I read this entire book in like a day because I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to know what happens. It was so good, guys. Honestly, this was the best book in the series. Hands down. The characters in this book got better. Like, the characters I didn't like, which would be Emma's mother, Galen a little bit, they got progressively better. It was just better. The love interest in this book and the attempt at making a love triangle, I don't want to say I didn't like it, but I think it was executed very strangely. Like I said, this isn't a spoiler because it is on the front, the cover, but I think that it was executed weird. It wasn't like normal. It was very insta-lovey and like, oh, I just met you, but be with me forever kind of thing, which plays out in this whole entire series. And I do have a love-hate relationship with insta-love because I can understand it in some circumstances, but this was just weird. If you hear something in the background, my daughter is up and running around. So that is what that is, and if you've been to my channel, then you already know she's always in the background. I did enjoy the characters. I didn't enjoy the love interest, the new love interest, that much really, but I enjoyed the villains. The villains were nice, and I liked the plot twist, which of course I can't tell you because we're doing non-spoilery stuff. But I loved the plot twist in this book. I think there was so much action and things going on in this book, and it was just nice and refreshing for this series to have a book full of stuff like that. I suck at non-spoilery discussions. I'm sorry. Overall, I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. I would recommend this book probably over the rest of the books in the series. I would say if you're willing to read, I believe the first one's 300 pages and some change. The second one's 2-something and some change. To get to this book, go ahead and do it, guys. If you're not, I understand completely, but this book is the best one in the series, in my opinion. And I know so many people on Goodreads were like, why does this book exist? The second book ends so... the second book ends like it should be the end of the series. But then, of course, this book was made, so people were upset, like, why does there need to be a third book? Some people said just read the first two and pretend this one doesn't exist. Do not do that. Honestly, do not. This book is good, guys. This book is the best one out of the entire series, and I don't understand why people are so upset that it exists, because it is good. It is really good. I think the author got progressively better at writing as she went through the series. I believe the first novel was a debut. I can see how she's improved greatly, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I loved it. So without further ado, let me jump into my rating. I rated this book 4 stars, guys, and you know that is a lot better than the previous ones. The first one I rated 2.5, the second one I rated 3.5, I believe, and this one 4 stars. Solid. If that doesn't tell you how much better it's gotten, I don't know what will. Alrighty, spoilery people, or non-spoilery people, if you guys want to hop off this video now will be the time, because I'm about to jump into some spoilers. I'll give you guys a second to hop off. Alrighty guys, let's do it. So we're gonna skim through my tabs because I do remember pretty much everything I wanted to discuss. So yeah, we're just gonna do a little skim. So the beginning of this book really is not important, and I don't really want this to be a long spoiler review, so I'm just, like I said, going to get to the parts where I just was like, what is happening here? Even though I'm pretty sure I remember it, I do want to give my tabs some attention. The fact that Antonis doesn't tell Emma that this is a town full of half-breeds does make sense in a way, but still I feel like he should have warned her, because as they're, you know, getting ready to go to this town, they have no idea what they're getting themselves into, and boy do they get themselves into quite a lot. Just throwing that one out there. There is a scene when they're on the way to this town where they actually pull over and start like making out, and like they're like getting to the point where they're about to have sex, and then Emma's like, wait a minute, we're not supposed to have sex until we're mated, and then she pulls back and stops, and Galen is just like, okay, well yeah, she is right. And I'm sitting here like, really? I understand it, but I just, yeah, it was funny to say the least. I really thought they were gonna do it, but obviously they didn't. When they go to this underwater spring like cave thingy is where they discover Reed. That's his name. He was so unmemorable. That's when they discover Reed, and they find out Reed is a half-breed with the gift of Poseidon, which I guessed when he was talking to the fish, but I still wanted to wait until I knew for sure. And at dinner it is said, oh yeah, Reed and his brother, I can't remember the brother's name, have the gift of Poseidon. And this whole time Galen is very upset that this all is happening, and it's a part in the book that I'm kind of struggling to understand in a way. I don't really get why he'd be upset, because it is a place where Emma can be welcomed, and if he loves her so much, you would think he would be okay with her being welcomed, but he is kind of bound by the law, so he is upset because these people, these half-breeds, should not exist, especially the fact that they carry the gift of Poseidon, which would mean they're descendants of Poseidon, and it is said that there are a lot of descendants of Poseidon in this town. And that is just mind-blowing, because in the other 2 books we had thought that Poseidon's descendants were killed by Triton, you know, destroying the land and the half-breeds, but now we find out that all that has been a lie, which was a plot twist I was not expecting, and boy did I enjoy it, guys. I really did enjoy it. It was very refreshing for this book to have some really high stakes and really good plot points. Okay, so from the very beginning there is tension between Reed and Galen, which is understandable because Reed immediately comes off as like, dang Emma, I want you. And any guy would not take that lightly. And if I was Emma, I wouldn't take it lightly either, because like, we just met. This is really, really weird. Which reminds me, and I know I'm gonna forget it, so I'm just gonna mention it now. There's a line in this book where Emma literally says, but Reed, she doesn't say but Reed, but in her mind she's like, I just met Reed. Why is he so obsessed with me? And this line made me want to just be like, because literally that was Galen in the entire first book. And in the second book we find out they only knew each other for 3 months. Honestly, how can you be upset with Reed but you're fine with Galen? Like, that's a double standard much. Honestly, I just can't. That line upset me. So some stuff in this book did upset me, guys, believe it or not. They have dinner. Galen lies and says his trident is a tattoo, that he's not a Triton Royal. Of course, they figured out that he was lying though, because Serena's skin doesn't hold up tattoos because it is so thick. And I don't really understand what the point of him lying would have been, because they knew either way, so he might as well have just been honest. And I understand he was very uncomfortable in the situation, because it is weird. You just met this half-breed, now you're going to his family's house to meet his full-blooded Serena father and his mother, and him and his little brother, whose name I can't recall, have the gift of Poseidon, just like your girlfriend Emma. And yeah, that's a lot to take in, and I feel like this book didn't give Galen, or Emma really, who just seemed to be fine with it all, enough chance to take all this stuff in. Because once you hear all this stuff, you do need time to process like what is going on and what is happening. I feel like there was no time given in this book for them to process. It was just like for them to process. It was just like, oh, this is a town full of half-breeds and full-blooded Serena. Okay, you want to have dinner? Wait a minute, what? Like, give me a minute here, guys. Honestly, I couldn't even process this quick enough. This fight with Emma and Galen is interesting to say the least. Emma, I feel, was a tad bit insensitive in this fight, and Galen, I feel, was non-descriptive, I guess. He didn't really explain to her what he meant by things, and then he just ran off. Like, that was just it. Like, it was a lot, and I think Emma didn't take into account the fact that Rachel's just died. And Galen is still hurting, and of course he wants to take her back to the ocean and have their mating ceremony. He wants to be with her forever. He wants to know that she's his forever, because someone he thought would be with him forever, not with him like Emma, but with him in the sense of physically being there, has just passed away. And there was a reviewer on Goodreads that said Emma was so insensitive in the way that she handled things. We will get there. I do feel as though in this fight she was insensitive and she did not fully understand what was happening. However, I will also say that Emma, it's not her job essentially to fully understand what he is trying to tell her when he isn't expressing it the proper way. She cannot understand, oh, he means Rachel, if he doesn't say he means Rachel, and he refuses to process his grief, which isn't really discussed in this book at all. And that isn't Emma's fault. She didn't know. Although I feel as though Emma should have been aware of the fact that he was still grieving Rachel, and of course he does not want to deal with another problem, meaning a city full of half-breeds and full-blooded Serena that he now has to report back to Grom, because he is still a prince of Triton, and it would not be okay for him just to sit on this secret. And he doesn't want to sit on this secret because they just got through so much going on in the previous book, including someone he loved dearly passing away. And I feel as though Emma should have known that to an extent. It should have just been done differently, put it that way. Now, this is where the book took a turn and things kind of went crazy, and I feel like this is where a majority of my markers come in, because I was just like, from this moment on, I was like, no, what is happening? And again, I did skip forward a little bit because Emma's POV is between Galen's POV, and I wanted to get back to Galen's POV because in this chapter, he gets kidnapped. I didn't understand at first. I was like, I need to know how he got kidnapped. So of course Emma has been crying and she's very upset, and if I was in her position, I'm not really sure what I would do. And this is where that Goodreads comment comes in again, because the person was saying instead of her looking for Galen, she runs off with Reed, which she does run off with Reed, but I do think that she was hoping Galen would come back. She did not think that Galen was kidnapped, guys, okay? Why would she think that? It's Galen. He's a full-blood Serena. He's strong. He's a prince. Who would kidnap him, right? That's what would probably be going through her mind. She would think we just had a fight and he left. When it took him longer to come back, she probably should have suspected something. However, she didn't, and she did not want to sit in her room and cry all day. Guys, you don't have to sit in your room and cry all day. I'll just put it like that, and I've been in my moods, and I understand that sometimes this does happen, but Emma did want to pull herself together and go explore this town because that's what she came to do. And I can't blame her for that, because who would want to sit in a hotel room in a strange town with people, full of people like you, with a gift like you, and mourn or cry over your boyfriend leaving when you already know he loves you and he'll probably come back, right? Right. Remember, she doesn't think he's been kidnapped. No one does. Galen tries to show no fear during this interrogation, in which Triton, the guy who has taken him, who is full-blooded Serena and apparently fat, basically says that Galen should fear because he has this blade that can cut through rhino skin, and rhino skin is twice as thick as full-blood Serena skin. So in other words, he can cut and kill or harm Galen. That put a new twist on things, I guess you could say. He actually cuts off a piece of his t-shirt, and well, he cuts his own skin because remember, he's full-blood Serena. So he cuts his own skin to show Galen like, yeah, this stuff will cut you, and he's bleeding onto the floor, which this is like some psychotic stuff. I don't know how the author has made this happen, but yeah, this happens, and he cuts Galen's shirt and he wraps it around. He's like, all right, now let's talk. Meanwhile, Emma goes fishing with Reed, which really isn't important because they don't even really fish. While Galen is locked up in this prison, he is worried about Emma, and I can really just skim through these markers because I already know what I want to say. Galen is locked up for a minute, and we find out while he is locked up that, well, not while he's locked up, it's actually after he's locked up, but Triton hints that he's upset that Jagan failed, and we wonder why, because it's not said, it's just kind of hinted at. Meanwhile, Galen is beat up by him, and Emma is spending time with Reed. And nothing really of importance happens during this time other than she meets pretty much everybody in town. And she learns that she can blend if she rubs her arm for a very, 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 very long time, which doesn't help her at all. Galen is still imprisoned, guys. And while Galen is in prison, Triton, the guy who imprisoned him, is basically asking him things and telling him things that hint at other things. It's like foreshadowing almost. He wants him to call his brother, bring his brother there, because he wants his brother to attack the town and capture Redder, because Redder's not a good leader, because Triton used to be the leader, and he felt like he was a better leader. This isn't said here, but I'm gonna bring it up. Though people said he was cruel, later on in the story you find that out. He also says he wants to see the fin of a Triton Royal, and this is another part where I was just like, oh my gosh, is Galen gonna do it? Is Galen gonna do it? Is Galen gonna do it? During this time, Emma begins to wonder what happened to Galen. Is he okay? Is he all right? Her mother calls and they say they have not seen Galen. Did he leave her there? She tells them, don't come. You don't want to come here. She tells them where she is, but she does tell them not to come. And she starts to go through an inner monologue where she's wondering if something has happened to him, because he's not the type of person to do this stuff. But she hasn't really known him for that long, so she isn't really sure. So she goes through an inner dialogue where she's like, did something happen? Oh my gosh, what if something happened? You would think her mother would have come though. This is another part where I don't like her mom, because you find out that Galen has left her daughter. Immediately you know Galen would never leave your daughter, and if he stepped in the ocean, Torv would sense him. He would let you know, but none of that has happened. But still, she's just like, all right, well, if you're fine, and just kind of gets off the phone, which again, her motherly instincts are just god-awful. Just saying. Emma does find out that Reed has developed a fin before, but it was very ugly looking and like chicken skin, because their skin is not as thick as normal Serena, so their fins aren't either. And this is never brought up again, which is kind of sad. I wish it was elaborated upon because I do want to know more about it. And also, while I'm on the topic of Reed, he's very weird. He makes some sexual statements toward Emma when she's in a swimsuit and stuff that are just odd, because he barely knows her. He just met her, and there's a part where he like grabs her and he's like, all you have to do is tell me to kiss you, and then when you kiss me, I'll know who you chose. It'll be me, and that'll be it. And it's really weird, like weirder than Galen was with her, which is pretty darn weird. Like, I feel like, yeah. When Emma is telling Reed that she thinks Galen has gone missing, he's never left for this long before, something has to be wrong, she needs people to look for him, and Reed is like, okay, we'll get the sheriff on it right away, like no big deal. I thought the sheriff was going to be Triton. It wasn't, but I thought it was. And Emma starts basically like, we have to look now, we gotta go look, we need to find out if he's okay, he would never do this. And Toby is his name, Reed's little brother, goes, so-and-so went missing, and they never came back, nobody looked for them. And it's never elaborated upon. Like, Reed just says, oh, that was just a game, or he was just imagining that. But it is never elaborated upon who this person that went missing was, what this game was, nothing. And I thought it was a real person because that would make sense, right? Because Toby is old enough to know the difference. So again, it was a part in the story where something was said, but nothing was elaborated upon about it. Kind of like the tail thing. kind of strange if you think about it. So as they're about to go to this town hall meeting, Triton is about to tell Galen the story of Tartessos, which is where supposedly all the half-breeds were killed and destroyed, right? But he drugs Galen, claiming he wants him to get some rest, which I didn't really understand because it didn't make sense. He just kind of drugged him, and then we find out the story through the town hall huddle thing, and then Galen wakes up, and that's just, I mean, there was really no point in drugging him because he did nothing to him while he was drugged. So in the town hall meeting, we find out that what we thought was true about Tartessos isn't, that somebody named Neptune basically went and convened with the archives, and it was told to him that they were going to flood the city and kill everyone. So he took some of Poseidon's offspring and full-blood Serena, who wanted to stay with their offspring and with their families, and agreed to stay on land and not go back in the ocean and just live on land, kind of like Emma's mother. And he brought them to Neptune, where they could fish and they could have water. Of course, it was fresh water, but it was still water. And so he brought them there, and they lived there, and they just let the ocean dwellers think that they had died, which makes some sense. And in the middle of this speech, Redder, who is Reed's father, literally looks at Emma and goes, "She's gonna help us unite the kingdoms." What a way to put her on the spot. Honestly, she never once said that. She was never asked if she wanted to do it. It was just like in the middle of a town hall meeting with all these people around, he's like, "Oh yeah, she's gonna help us." And I feel like that was inconsiderate on his part because he didn't even ask her. And again, this happens a lot throughout these books, that Emma is never asked what she wants to do. She's just kind of told almost what she's going to do. And then later on, she has to fight to actually be able to do what she wants to do. That happens quite frequently. Then Emma has decided, since the search party came back that were looking for Galen and they did not find him, she decides that they're gonna go looking for him themselves, her and Reed, right? Just her and Reed in the woods. Just dumb. So the weird guy in the beginning of this book, whose name I honestly don't remember, let me try to find it. Mr. Kennedy, the weird guy in the beginning of this book, who I knew wasn't a botanist, and I figured there was something up with him, but never expected this. He says don't go here because there's black bears. Reed is very rude about it, and Emma is like, don't be rude to him. We won't go there because we don't want to run into bears, like he said. We want to be careful and we want to be safe. So in the middle of them going to search for Galen, Galen actually escapes. Well, the way that Galen escapes is that he grows a fin, which obviously causes harm to his fin a little bit because he's bound by his feet, and he grows this fin which breaks the binds. But in order to break the binds, of course it's going to constrict and it's going to hurt because it's rope. So he grows a fin, he hits Triton with it a few times, gets away from Triton, doesn't kill him but knocks him unconscious. He ties him up, doesn't take him because he's too heavy to take with him. I don't know what I would have done in this situation because I would not have killed him, but in the same token, you do have to make sure he doesn't get out, which Galen does not do. Just saying. So Emma and Reed go the exact place they were told not to go, which Mr. Kennedy was counting on. And he pulls a gun on them, and I am just like, what is happening here? This is the part in the story where everything was just like boom, 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 boom. And I was just like, oh my gosh, stop! What is going on? The search party that was looking for Galen sees him running through the woods, but he thinks that it's Triton's guys. So he jumps into the water. Emma freaks out because Mr. Kennedy has taken Reed. So Mr. Kennedy has taken Reed, and the same token, Galen is running from Triton. So there's two enemies here at the same exact time, and I was just like, oh god, what is happening? What's going on? Where? Well, Galen gets caught in a net and as he's swimming away, right, to get to Emma. The weirdest thing is that he says, oh, I'm just gonna play dead. I'm gonna act like I'm a dead body when they pull me up because it's just a normal human. I'm too far out for it to be anybody else, right? Wrong. Galen is taken up and he acts like he's dead, and he's wondering why this person hasn't freaked out yet, right? So this person shoots him with a dart. His vision goes blurry and then just disappears altogether, and he's knocked out once again. Emma, meanwhile, is in town freaking the heck out because Reed has been taken. So she has to tell his father. So she tells his father, Redder, who was like, all right, you, Emma, go with Sheriff Grisby. We're going to hide you downtown because we don't know if Mr. Kennedy's looking for you. So they put her in the basement of City Hall to protect her with two guards. One of them being Triton. We're not even there yet, but I'm going to say it. One of them is Triton. How the heck did he get out so quick, right? Lord have mercy. I just couldn't at this point. I was just like, I need to finish this book. Galen and Reed are now locked up in some shed where Mr. Kennedy has left them. And Galen, of course, finds out that Reed kissed Emma, and he freaks the heck out. He's just like, oh my gosh, why would you kiss her? And he wants to punch him, but he can't because they're chained up kind of like this. And meanwhile, Emma is in City Hall. She has called her mother, and her mother is on the way with Rhaena, Torf, King Antonis, Grom, and of course herself. Things are getting even more messy. I said this wasn't going to be a long review, but here we are, whatever. I have no complaints here, guys. Galen and Reed come up with this plan. Of course, they have to work together to get away from Mr. Kennedy. Meanwhile, Triton comes into the room in City Hall where Emma is, and he pulls a gun and starts talking about Jagan and Paka and begins to get ready to tell her the story of how he met Jagan and how he was involved in the attempted overthrowing of the king. Emma is scared for her life because obviously, and the guard that was protecting her, who wasn't on Triton's team, has been knocked out and hurt and probably has some broken bones, but nobody really cares about that because Triton doesn't care. Emma does, but there's nothing she can do. Galen and Reed's plan to trick Mr. Kennedy is that Reed will act scared, Galen won't be. And they will fool Mr. Kennedy by telling him about the gifts because Mr. Kennedy will want to see said gifts. And in between here, there is some violence where Mr. Kennedy holds Locke in his hand and punches Reed a couple of times, which should have knocked out some teeth, and it actually does make him bleed. And then Galen says, stop, he's not full-blooded Serena, like, you're going to kill him, don't do that. There's also a line where Mr. Kennedy says to Galen that he's surprised he doesn't remember him, and at this point I was like, who the heck is he? And I don't know why it didn't dawn on me that he was one of the people, one of the marine biologists that was with Dr. Mulligan way back when Galen saved him. I don't know why that didn't dawn on me. It should have, because that would make sense that he's been chasing mermaids ever since because he saw Galen when he was little. Here's where we find out that in the last book, King Antonis had sent Jagan to Neptune to give news and everything because King Antonis knows about Neptune, has been in Neptune, and every once in a while sends someone to talk about it. So he sent Jagan, and Jagan met Triton, and they hit it off right away. And they came up with a plan to overthrow the kings and then unite Neptune with the Poseidon and the Triton Serena, right? Right. Okay, so mind you, Triton also says that Jagan has a half-breed son who is 2, and he threatened Jagan about that he would kill his son or harm his son if Jagan did not succeed or did not help. And since they are now locked up, his son is now in danger. Emma asks how was Grom going to fit into all of this, because if you remember, Paka was mated with Grom. And he says, well, he wasn't, we were going to kill him. Remember, Grom is on the way here with Emma's mother. So, just throwing that out there. And then, of course, as I said, while this is happening, Mr. Kennedy is dying to know about the gifts. And so Galen sets out to show him the gift of Poseidon, which Galen, of course, doesn't have, but he just says he has it. And once he gets him down to the water, he jumps in and takes off. And Mr. Kennedy's a terrible shot, so he can't shoot him even though he's trying. And Galen gets away once again. Meanwhile, Triton is still threatening Emma because he's like, remember when Jagan and Paka had the roles right where we wanted them, we were going to win, and then you came in and ruined it. So Emma's afraid for her life because he thinks that Triton is going to kill her. Rightfully so, because he's saying that it is her fault that he didn't get what he wanted, essentially. So Galen gets back on land, goes to Redder's house, gets some clothes. At the same time, he is able to call Grom, who picks up the phone and lets him know that Torf is out there trying to get a captive because they were going to do a trade for trade, but none of that matters now. So he says if you find Torf, to let him know we don't need a captive, and that everybody's there in a picnic area right outside of town, essentially waiting for him and Emma. But first they have to get Emma, and that Emma is at City Hall because her mom has tracked her phone. Her mom has now turned into the new Rachel, if you hadn't noticed. Galen heads to City Hall and meanwhile bumps into Torf. And Torf is like, I've already been there, Emma's not there. Triton has moved her, and this is where I thought all hope was lost, and I was like, no, my poor Emma, what is going to happen to you? But they see her and Triton driving in a car, and of course the car is right in front of them. And I didn't mind this so much because I didn't think we needed to drag this out any further into a manhunt for Emma. Like, this was enough. The action that was going on was just like, ugh. Triton has a gun to Emma, and Torf just casually knocks on the window And since Triton doesn't recognize Torf, he's like, you know, I need help getting to City Hall, blah, blah. He's distracting Triton and Emma, basically. Emma just doesn't know what to say or do, because she's like, I know he sees the gun, like, he knows I'm captive. What is he gonna do? What's gonna happen? As they are talking in Distracted, Galen breaks through Triton's window. And I don't know what happens here. Like, as Galen breaks through Triton's window and pulls him out, Torf opens Emma's door and pulls her out. There's a gunshot that goes off, but nobody gets hurt. And Torf and Galen have subdued Triton, and Triton is knocked out once again. But this time, it is going to be permanent, guys. After this, they take Triton to the campground where Emma's mother ties him up with some good old duct tape and other stuff. And Raina watches over him because Raina doesn't care. She'll hit first and apologize later, right, guys? That's Raina's attitude. And then Galen begins to talk and discuss about Neptune, and they start going through, and Galen says, listen, I left Reed there, which really pissed me off that he just left Reed. Because Kennedy could have killed Reed. He could have killed him. There's a town full of half Serena and of half-breeds and full-blood Serena. He would just kidnap somebody else. Galen doesn't think about this, and of course, since Kennedy has Reed and everybody in town is looking for him, he just takes Reed and doesn't make sure on his promise to cut out Reed's tongue, because Reed is the only evidence that he has. Meanwhile, they have gone back to the cabin. They go back to the cabin together. It's Galen, Torf, and Brina go back to the cabin. They find Reed is not there. They're freaking out, but they hear a boat. And of course, it must be Kennedy's boat, right? Galen is like, I can catch up to them, blah, blah, blah. Raina's like, nah, let me do it. He's like, you can't swim fast enough. So she uses the gift of Triton to make the water move and bring the boat back to them. Makes sense, right? Meanwhile, Emma's grandfather tries to make amends, which Emma's not even upset with him, so it doesn't really matter much. Then they return. Galen, Torf, and Raina return with Mr. Kennedy and Reed. Emma's mom checks Reed out. They make sure Reed's okay. They tie up Mr. Kennedy, very similar to how they tied up Triton. Galen has already called Dr. Mulligan, who's on his way to talk to Dr. Kennedy, because they were both friends at one point, and basically he's hoping, I don't know what he's hoping for. I guess hoping that Dr. Mulligan can convince him of something. I don't know, to like knock it off or something. I don't see why that would work, but whatever. I'm just going to wrap up the rest of these tabs as best as I can. Basically, they have decided that they will have a meeting with Redder, who is Reed's father, about the half-breeds possibly joining with the Serena in the ocean, and there possibly be something worked out between them. But remember, the royals don't have the final say, the archives do. So it is discussed and determined that the royals will do their best to help. They will come up with an agreement amongst themselves, and later on they will discuss it with the archives. And hopefully it'll all work out. They have this meeting where it is determined that they will take Triton back to be judged by the archives, and he will be put in the ice caves, and in return, they will also take Reed, because Reed is a half-breed with the gift of Poseidon from the town of Neptune. Basically, they will take Reed as an advocate for the town of Neptune. And hopefully the archives will be okay with it and everything will work out in time. But they do need quite a bit of time to mull this over, I guess you could say. Dr. Kennedy is going to also lose his marine biologist doctorate because of what has happened, and will probably be in prison because he did shoot Reed in the arm. So that is discussed and told, and also it is discussed and told that humans have found the Serena. You know, Dr. Kennedy is a human, he has found them, right? So they need to be careful, and times are changing. And Galen says, well, we'll just have to change with them, right? Okay, what upset me was that there could have been another book just about the fact that humans were discovering the Serena. It could have been discussing how that worked and what agreement they came up with humans, and you know, conflicts leading up to that, and then, you know, ending off with humans and Serena kind of living together or knowing about each other kind of in harmony. But that doesn't happen, of course, because this is the last book, and that was something that kind of just frustrated me. Instead, there is an epilogue, and I have so many tabs in this epilogue, but we don't need to discuss every one of them. This review is already almost 50 minutes. A year later, Emma and Galen are going to college, and Emma and Galen have decided to have their mating ceremony. So they do have their mating ceremony on an island, and this is where it's hinted at that half-breeds have been accepted, because half the town of Neptune shows up along with the rest of the Serena, and they have their mating ceremony. And then of course they have sex, but it's not described very much, just that they experience each other's bodies in full. And so that is how it ends. They have their mating ceremony and they're going to be together forever, and that is the end of this book. And this review is so long. I suck at short reviews. Anyway, guys, I really enjoyed this book. I thought the stakes were perfect, with there being so much happening with Galen getting kidnapped, and then Rudder expecting Emma to join Neptune in the ocean arena, and then Mr. Kennedy or Dr. Kennedy kidnapping Reed and Galen, and then, you know, it ending with them coming up with a compromise, and then the epilogue. I just really loved this book. I loved it more than the rest of the books. Like I said, 4 stars, guys, and I don't want to make this review any longer for you, so I will just leave it at that. You guys have heard all my thoughts about it, and if you've watched this far, oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like and a comment down below, and I will see you guys in my next review video, which will be for Nathaniel Gray and the Obsidian Crown by Pharrell Keeling, and we'll talk about that one when we get there. Alrighty, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!